Welcome. We are in the room live as we continue to rock and roll on this show. Thank you so much for being with us today. We have a fantastic show, fantastic guests with us. So make sure you're coming in the room. When you do get in the room, make sure you're sharing this out with your networks. And we just pump the music and everything is going lovely this morning. Hope you're doing great wherever you are right now. So just kind of come on in, whether you're on Facebook, whether you are on YouTube or you are on LinkedIn. We're going to have this fantastic conversation and looking forward to seeing all your comments out there. I'll be chatting over here and posting a comment section. But let's get into this. Good day, great day inspires. Another day of learning awakes us all. You have found your way into the podcast, The New Normal Mindset. My name is John Register, two-time and two-sport Paralympic athlete, a silver medalist and combat Army veteran, professional keynote speaker, and I'll be your host for the next, probably about 40 minutes that we're going to be chatting here. As you're making your way into the room and you're subscribing to, make sure you're doing that. Make sure you're liking and the show as well as to all those out there that you know, just keep promoting. The New Normal Mindset podcast introduces you to individuals who have overcome tremendous odds. They have hurdled their adversity, amputated their fear, and embraced what I call a new normal mindset in their life, and are pushing that into the lives of others. For those who do not know me and my story, I kind of follow the riches to rags to riches storyline. I was a world-class athlete, ran track and field for the University of Arkansas, Go Pigs, was a four-time All-American there, and then went to two Olympic trials, once in the high hurdles, once in the 400-meter hurdles. And during the second time, I was actually a member of the United States Army and a combat Army veteran, having served in Operation Desert Shield and Desert Storm. And while I was serving in the military, I had an injury to my left knee, which caused its dislocation. And that dislocation subsequently wound up getting infected and broke the popliteal artery. And finally, I wound up having an above the knee amputation. It was really my wife, Alice, who said to me, you know what, John, we're going to get through this moment together. This is just our new normal. And it was with that mindset I really began to retool and repurpose and just build up for a future existence that I didn't even know quite existed. Right? As we do our life's transition, sometimes there's a pathway that reveals itself as we are moving through our own journeys in life. We just have to be cognizant of that path. And once we find it, be brave enough to walk on the path that's before us. So I began swimming for physical therapy. And I got so fast in the water that I somehow fluked up, messed up, and actually made the Paralympic swim team. So I go to Atlanta, Georgia, and I'm on the swim team, and I see athletes running and jumping on artificial limbs. It was really early on when people were running leg over leg on an above the knee amputation. And I had a leg made for running. And then 4 years later, I was in Sydney, Australia with our guest that we're going to have on the show. And it was at the tail end of my career, and I wound up winning the Paralympic long jump silver medal in Sydney, Australia. But it doesn't stop there. So after we have our successes in life, we have to go back, I believe, and choose to be an individual that will help others along the journey. So I wound up coming on with the United States Olympic Committee's Paralympic Military Sport Program and founded that program, which then in turn went on to become Warrior Games that the DoD runs now, the Department of Defense. Then it also was the Veterans, we call it, what's the thing called? The Valor Games. So the Valor Games are run by the Department of Veterans Affairs. So it turned into that as well. And it turned into Prince Harry's Invictus Games. So you never know how many people you're going to be inspiring with your life. You just have to keep living that life. My passion is to inspire worlds, not to inspire the world. To inspire the world means that you take a Herculean effort to try to reach every single person that's out there. The reason I chose to inspire worlds over motivate is because, in my opinion, motivation is like being in a standardized car. You know, you get in, it doesn't start, so you got to pop the clutch. If y'all know about that, and you don't have to pop the clutch anymore in these new cars, but you got to pop the clutch and get it going. And then when it stops, you had to get it going again and pop the clutch to get it moving again. So that's the kind of motivation. In inspiration, we are actually coming from the word, the Latin word inspiro, which means to breathe life into someone, to breathe life into. And when you breathe life into somebody, you don't have to get them started again because they're off on their own. So as a professional speaker, as a professional speaker coach, I don't want people coming back to me to have that life put back in them again. I want them to move out on their own. So that's what happened with the military support program, right? Those when going in to visit those hospitals, those individuals, they found the story and then they were off on their own journey. And literally, tens of thousands of people have been impacted by that, and they're off running in their own area. So the guests I have on the show today, and those that I always have on, are those as well. They are life givers. There are so many people speaking negatively out there and talking death to individuals. I have just chosen to do the opposite. So once again, welcome into the space. Make comments in the show screen, and I will do my best to put your comments on the screen so that we can have a robust conversation. So make sure you're sharing this content with your tribe, and if you are enjoying the content, please share it as well. All right, so let's get into the show right now. We have a great guest on with us. I'm sure this conversation is just going to be off the charts awesome. I first met our guest when we were roommates in Birmingham, England. You have to say it like that, Birmingham, England. And so he was a young up-and-coming track and field athlete, and I was a seasoned veteran. However, I was new to the world of disability sport, and I couldn't actually believe I had made the team because I jumped so poorly. Didn't even know I could jump on one leg. Through the years, we remained great friends, even taking a trip over to Hawaii, where we had an amazing time sharing the values of sport for people with disabilities to physical medicine and rehabilitation doctors at their conference. And we also did some boogie boarding. So listen to these accolades. In 2000, he won the gold medal in the 100 meters, the silver medal in the high jump at the Paralympic Games in Sydney, Australia. This is also the games where I won my silver medal, as I said before. In 2002, he won 3 gold medals in the 100 meters, the long jump, and the 4x4 relay at the IPC, International Paralympic Committee Athletics World Championships in Lille, France. And that was my last competition that I did as well. In 2003, he becomes the SBA Award recipient, Best Athlete with a Physical Disability. In 2004, he wins the gold medal in the 100 meters, silver medal in the 200 meters, bronze medal in the long jump, and Paralympic Games in Athens, Greece. In 2005, returns to the ESPYs award recipient for the best male athlete, or best athlete again with a physical disability for the second time. And he has now been nominated to the United States Olympic and Paralympic Hall of Fame. Please welcome Mr. Cheetah, the one and only Marlon Shirley.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, we're doing great. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. It's been a very blessed last couple of weeks. It's been just kind of having been out of the sport for so long and so many great things to be, possible through sport, and obviously, reaching what I think is the ultimate achievement in sport, given my career with the Hall of
Well,
Fame.
absolutely. How did you hear about that? You just all of a sudden they just gave you some Lay's potato chips and stuff. Hey, you're in the Fall of Fame.
No,
How'd you hear about it?
I was driving down the road. I had a friend from the OSOC call me and say, just to let you know, tomorrow it's going to be announced that you're going to be one of the nominees out for the Hall of Fame. And I got emotional. I had to pull over and I was on the side of the road. Firstly, I had to call my mom, which was a mess because I was just so emotional. And then that same person had to call me back and be like, wait, you didn't win it. I was like, I know, but just being in the mix is like, it's unbelievable. It was highly unlikely for me to even conceive that something like this was possible.
Well, talk about that a little bit. Why? What were the emotions really coming from? Usually when emotions happen, that it's because that there's something embedded within inside of us that sort of wells to the surface when we kind of get recognized for something that maybe we either don't think we deserve, or it came out of left field. We didn't realize we were in the running for it. And because we're usually with medals, you're not really, even though you're going for the medal, you're not really, it's not the focal point, right? It's to try to get the win for self satisfaction. So why the emotion around being nominated for the Hall of Fame?
I mean, we ran, it's a great question. A lot of events that we run are, say world championships. And for me, like, yeah, obviously the Paralympics, but, there's also, a circuit where my class was running with, at say like 2003 world championships, able body world championships, and they had a discipline for the T44. So there was this thing that always went on since 98 through Dave Grevenberg, where we'd have our own discipline at an able-bodied event. And so like those were awesome moments to build a sport. When it came down to medals, winning a Paralympic medal is huge. There's no two ways about it. Being a gold medalist is extremely relevant, because the competition that I was coming into in 2000 had just skyrocketed.
Yeah.
The difference between first and second was within, a hundredth of a second by the time 2004 came along. Now, I was also the multi-world record holder in the 100, at time 200, the long jump, the high jump, so there was there weren't very many things that I felt that I could do outside of like maybe win 5 gold medals in one games. That's a crazy one.
Mhm.
That's a lot to ask. But when I got an injury that we'll talk about later, that's at a time when I had to really redefine what these things meant to me. My world records were, a lot to me. I had them for 10, some for 15 years.
Yeah.
And, you know, losing a world records, like, yeah, they're meant to be broken, but nobody could take my gold medal away.
Yeah.
And, and that's why it became that much more important. And quickly, one more thing is that, even having the idea of being in the Hall of Fame, they could take all my gold medals. I don't care, because looking at the athletes in the history that's within, I think there's 119 inductees. That would be that next step. It's just about appreciating everything that I've been able to accomplish, do it as healthily as possible, and know that I did make some difference in the way people, carried themselves as a disabled person through athletics.
Interesting. So, one of the things you mentioned in there that I wanted to kind of explore a little bit is the injury, right? You said we'll talk about later. I'd like to bring it up kind of now,
Okay.
but because here's why. Kind of juxtapose these two things together. People, in my opinion, have believed that those athletes with disabilities are already injured and now they're just competing on injuries. But you're saying you're injured inside of the sport. Kind of walk us through the you're a person that has we'll go back, we'll talk about you're below
Mhm.
the amputee,
Right.
but at the same time, and you were injured to become a below the amputee, and now
Right.
you're talking about running with an injury. Kind of help us
All
understand that.
right. Yeah. So, of course, there's different classes in the Paralympics. Mine specifically, T44. So I am a below the knee amputee. My injuries would be no different than any elite athlete's injury would be when you're running at that level of competition. Also, I'm in the middle of designing a lot of the feet that I'm running in. Also, I'm research and development, which means I'm the crash test dummy. There's really no robot. There's really no robots that are going to, be able to tell you how's this foot going to hold up coming around the curve. How's it going to hold up jumping 7 meters? We do as much tests we can to, do kinetic, flexion and have our newtons as far as the stiffness of the foot. But when you got and you got to rip it and grip it, it works out most of the time. But when it doesn't, it's not pretty. First injury, major one, was blowing my knee out. And that was to the circumstances of how the track was set up. I was in the long jump. And let me just say one thing. Anytime something goes wrong, anytime I make a mistake, or anytime that I always internalize things first. Like, what could I have done differently to not be in this situation? Case in point, I'm in the long jump indoors and I'm doing my run throughs. I had, just, that means I'm getting my steps down and running through the board, make sure my foot's on the board for the long jump. The sand was so deep and so fresh that my prosthetic went all the way down just below my knee and stuck, but I kept going forward. And so my leg, yeah, bent and snap, pop, and all that Rice Krispie stuff. Never got a sponsor by him, unfortunately. but I had to, get back to the States, and chose to do a pretty aggressive rehabilitation, which was an allograft. And then I was in hyperbaric chamber for 3 months, 5 times a day. So, and it was, And it gave me the ability to come back in 9 months from having my ligaments
Mm,
replace my knee to win a world championships. The injury that was most, I guess, just the finale of it all was in Beijing, and it had something to do with that injury that I got 2 years ago. I went to get my knee scoped, just a simple scope, and I contracted MRSA. I was in the hospital for a month
wow.
as they did 13 to 15 irrigations trying to get this stuff out so it didn't go septic. That didn't go out too well. So I was back in the hyperbaric chamber and I got better, good enough to where my counts were fine, the infection was gone. But now, I mean, that was April it started. Now we're getting into July, and the team's getting ready to leave for 2008, and I had never lost the 100-meter race at all, not once, since 2000.
Yeah.
And this was my final race, and it was against another athlete who was really highly profiled. And well, long story short, I had to do a lot of different types of medication. Like I had IVs in me, with PICC lines, and unbeknownst to me, those can weaken your ligaments. So I went through the rounds in Beijing, and during the finals, my last race, about 45, 50 meters into the race, my foot just goes snap out, and my Achilles ruptured, and I went down on the track, and
Yeah.
it was probably the toughest thing I had went through at that point, because to look up and just see everything you worked for the last, you know, 15 years just run away from you, and everything you've worked on for the last 4 years just run away from you. It was very, very tough.
When you look at run, like I love that, not what happened, but the metaphor of everything's running away from you. We're in a situation now where people are really struggling, right? They are
Yes,
struggling with what does life look like now?
right.
So as they're in this pandemic, as we're in this pandemic globally, not just the United States, but globally,
Mm.
people are choosing to kind of take this as a respite and pause to look at a different way. When you had that injury and you're seeing everything kind of run away from you, you just can't get it back. What's going through your mind as either relates to that moment in time or the transition that is forthcoming?
Everything happened so quickly. And what went through my mind in that transition and what I needed to do, I'm very about the now. Like I always plan 10 steps ahead. I set my goals and then I look at the things I need to do in the meantime to accomplish those goals.
Mhm.
Um, in the 100-meter race, the gun goes off. I've been training this. Repetition is a form of emphasis. I learned that from Brooks Johnson. At that moment, the only thing that mattered is that I did not get carried off the track in a stretcher, and I was going to cross that finish line. And Brian Fraser, my biggest competition through my whole career and best friend and roommate, believe it or not, at every single games, he came back for me and pushed the guy. I kind of signaled away the guy with the stretcher, and he put the stretcher down. And then this staff worker put his arm under me, and Brian had his arm under me, and you could just see that practitioner side of Brian Fraser. And they got me straight down the track and through the finish line. So I did get eighth place,
Yeah.
but I never left my lane. I rolled, and I rolled like perfectly. And it's like, I like to say like, I did it intentionally, because I kind of did, but I did it because Brian doesn't really run straight down the track. And the last thing I wanted this dude's prosthetic to come and sever my neck off. So I made sure I rolled as straight as I possibly could. As much as I
And,
love the
and for
man.
those that don't know Brian Fraser out there, another world-class athlete, below knee
Mhm,
amputee, and now a prosthetist. So he
mhm,
knows how to put the legs together as well, and has that background. Yeah, it's interesting to me to see the transitions in life that
mhm,
happen. And are we, like you said, you're looking 10 steps down the road for this one particular moment in time, and kind of like my injury, right? I was
mhm.
looking forward towards the Olympic Games, and then the going to officer candidate school and becoming a military officer for
Right.
the next 20 years, and all of a sudden it changes in with one wrong step. So what was that process like for you to kind of heal through that? So you got the injury, but there's also a healing process of trying to move forward, and kind of, I don't know if it's letting go of one thing and
Mhm.
embracing something else, or if it's just kind of cold turkey in it and doing the next thing and realizing that this current thing is not going to happen.
Yeah, I think the first emotional thing I went through is I was scared to death. I mean, to be in a country that far away and to be essentially on your own um, would have been extremely frightening, given the magnitude of the injury and what can happen. You know, I've been through a lot of injuries, um, but my parents were there, and somehow my mom made it from the top of the 125,000 people in the stadium. She made it all the way down to the track, into the tunnel, and there I'm in the ambulance, and that gave me that comfort, right? You know, so it really allowed me to kind of like put a little bit of my stress off on others, because I knew at the end, like I still had them, and that I would be okay enough. But I was mad and I was angry, and again, because I feel that I could have avoided that situation that I chose to put myself in.
Mm.
I just don't know how to not run. I'm pretty sure, John, you could attest to that. You know, I just probably did too many events, ran too much, but I just loved competition. Um, I think it came down to realizing that I knew I was done, but as the years went on, I started looking at the times that these guys were running, and they were still running like 2/10 of a second off of my best times. Well, that was until this new foot came out. And all of a sudden they just started dropping like 10 9s and 10 8s and stuff. But you know, I think it was more of anything, just I held on to the environment more than I did the sport. I grew up as you know as a young man with all these great athletes, yourself included, around me, living at the Olympic Training Center. Everything was just perfect. It was like its own fraternity, and the women had their own sorority, and it was all in the most beautiful place, southern, San Diego. So that environment is what I really clinged on to. The hardest
Yeah.
thing for me was like dealing with the fact that like the lights just went out. Like it's not an injury that you come back from at the level that I was running it at,
Mhm.
and it's still obviously still bothers me to this day, without a doubt.
Do you think that, and that's great. It's not that it bothers you, but that you're so vulnerable to just kind of share that, because I think a lot of times we just want to get over it and we don't really wrestle with the emotional and the tie to what has happened and how it's altered a life. What would you say to those like individuals that are out there right now, who are struggling, who are challenged with a life-altering injury, or not injury, but
Mm,
a situation that we're in right now with the pandemic, right? So
yeah.
folks have left work. They are either looking. Some folks are trying to look for work, and
Hmm.
there's they're just struggling. They're out there struggling. How do you use your story to kind of offer life and encouragement to others that might be going through?
My story has been very unique in the sense that my mother, I was taken from a mother at a very young age. I've had, ever since I was born, I've had the world going against me. My mother was a prostitute. My father was her pimp. I lived on the streets in Nevada, on the streets in Florida. She was a heroin addict. And that was the first 3 years of my life. At 3, I was on the streets living with what called homeboys, going to the back of Carl's Jr.'s and seeing if they'd hook us up with some food, staying in, rundown hotels, and seeing my mom, incapacitated quite a bit. But I never really knew any differently.
Yeah.
And as life went on, I ended up getting picked up by social workers, and that was like my first deal with kind of like, I would say, like any type of racist or biasism, because it was my grandfather who was a pilot. I'm a pilot. He was a pilot. Never met the guy, And they expected him to take me into their home, and they lived in Fairfax, Virginia. And he said no, and that was because I am half black. So instead, that put me into the orphanage. Within 2 months, my caretaker was mowing the lawn and ran me over, and that's how I lost my left foot.
Mhm.
So it was fortunate for me because I was so young, being able to learn all those motor skills that, and like with a lot of soldiers that we worked with, especially in the early 2000s through Walter Reed. I mean, that's a traumatic experience for image and
Right,
obviously
right.
for posture. So as bad as things have always been for me, I'm not going to say it's always for someone else, but as bad as it's always been for me, there's always been this intangible part of me that just found an outlet. My outlet was building, cars, going to, mechanical school. Aviation was a huge part of me. Modeling was a huge part of me. I mean, just this week, I've been going nuts about the Hall of Fame. I went and got the piece of furniture and like redid it. Like I like to keep my mind occupied on things that they're not keeping me from doing my daily duties, but they
Yeah.
give me something to occupy what I need for me to deal with a hard situation. And that is to work with my hands, and and to create, or to build, or just to do something that I can be proud of the work I did after. I'm going through the same dark times as everyone else. I was in an industry where I knew that the pandemic was coming before most of us did, as far as officially got furloughed and all that kind of stuff. And I was in quarantine like as of February 4th, I think it was. And so
Mhm.
it's been a long time.
Yeah.
And there's really like no magic pill to take that's gonna make the reality go away.
Or you
But
shouldn't take a magic pill to
I don't drink that Kool-Aid either.
don't take that Kool-Aid.
And so the biggest thing was to make sure that I wasn't wasting time, and that
Yeah.
as small as it may have been to someone else, it was huge to me. And so that's when I went on and decided that I was going to work on getting a new prosthetic, and get this thing right to where I'm now able to walk and run, which sounds like normal to you, John, but to me, I could never run in my walking foot, because I am a Symes amputee, which means my amputation is all the way to the bottom of my leg. So I can literally have my knuckle can still go like this. So I don't have any clearance. So there's no technology I can use. So now I have a leg that's posterior mount. It looks like my cheetah, but has a heel on it, and it's giving me
Mm.
so much more flexibility. Just have so much more um, locomotion and movement, and so my mobility is my everything, and I have too many
That's
hobbies.
interesting.
I build computers. I have too many hobbies.
No, I think that's, and I wrote in the chat there that those hobbies, if we call them hobbies,
Hmm.
but they're outlets.
Yeah, they are
They're
truly.
not just escapes, but it's something that you find that you can do, and it's something that you can find that you can do
Yeah.
very well. And so you pour yourself into that, which this part of life might be like, I don't want to be that part. I don't want to
Hmm.
have that part, or I want to distance myself from that part, but I have this part, which I'm really good at. And I think that's one of the things that we help people with
Right.
when we're talking on this show, embracing life's new normal. And that
Right.
is, looking for the things that you do have
Hmm.
control over. I was just speaking for Infinity yesterday, and we're having the same type of conversation, right? To these senior executives that are in a space where they're trying to formulate this, embrace this new normal mindset, not only for themselves, but for the clients that they are pushing themselves into, because or that are buying their product. And I think that's what really happens is we we just
Tell
switch
them I
and we get
love
to switch.
mine.
There you go, right? So yeah, it was a fantastic conversation, and I
That's
find that
cool.
all over the place,
Hmm.
that even though we have a specific lane or track that we are
Right.
on, no pun intended, that we do get a chance to run our own race, and maybe there's a left and a right white line that we're going down,
Right.
but there's all this kind of red in between that we can get a chance to maneuver, and there's a race to be won, and to always move forward. I mean, you said when you had the injury on the track that here comes Brian Fraser, one of your rivals, teammates, comes back and lifts you up and carries you down the track when you can't carry yourself, right? It's the same thing I have when I'm on the track and my legs looking like the letter L. When
Yeah,
I
I've
can't do
seen
for
that
myself,
happen
I got other
before.
people supporting. Yeah, right. It's just when those things happen, who's around us, who surrounds us, and we
Mhm,
do honor them and do we appreciate them for how they have shown up
right.
in our lives.
I gave a
So
speech not too long ago. Oh, sorry, not to
yeah, go
interrupt
ahead.
you.
Yeah, go ahead. No,
I
go
gave
ahead.
a speech not too long ago, and it was, about, adversity, which is such a generalized, adversity. Well, which part of my life? But it was, adversity, specifically to athletics.
Mhm.
And, it really got me thinking of like, I know what it is, but like, how do I really define that? And the only way I could define it by the simplest of ways, because usually like the easiest conclusion to some of the most difficult ways is the simplest of answers. And it was always about the people who I had around me. That when I got that injury or I was in that situation, that I was in a position of, making sure that I had the exact team that I would want and that everybody was on the same page and I always had the right people around me even when I was training. Like there were people I didn't let in my circle when I was training. There were distractions, but I
Mhm.
just always
Mhm.
kept the right people around me. And, that's something that I feel we lost over the last couple of years because we've had to learn to have that distance and non-connective relationship. A lot of what happens in our daily life would be at the workspace environment. Believe it or not, people did enjoy going to work and seeing each other and so like
Yeah.
having that type of that not being able to have that touch was something I think that probably hurt us the most. I mean, restaurant industries, hostess, they love meeting people. Servers, they love speaking, and being able to serve people.
Right. Right.
We love to do what we do, but people really found a lot of their self-worth in being able to be next to someone and to communicate with them. And that's because we are codependent no matter the level of relationship, the color of our skin, our religion, our biases. Like we really pull from each other. And most of the times we know it and sometimes we don't know it. But we know
Yeah.
that we can walk away and usually feel better that we met that person. At least feel good about meeting that person, even if they disagree with us at every facet of what we believe in.
Yeah.
It's just like I'm a person who likes to always learn. I don't like to, question and challenge and really, like people what they believe in, but I really do like to know why they believe in it and get a better understanding on how I can make those situations, a part of my life or at least understand how to deal with it when I come across it.
Yeah. Well, we're talking with Marlon Shirley, multiple gold medalist, Paralympic champion, a couple times SB Award winner for the category of persons with disability. I want to kind of go on in that tangent a little bit, with, we have Los Angeles 2028 that's coming
Mhm.
up,
Yep.
which is the games, the Olympic and Paralympic games will be coming back to U.S.
Sure.
soil. When you
Yep.
look at Paralympics and, and specifically people with disabilities,
Mhm.
what does that really mean to you to see the growth of the sport, either in media or in awareness? Do we have a long way to go? Are we there yet? Kind of share with me your thoughts on the movement as itself, and where do we have to go?
Well, I believe the movement in the Paralympics has been just accelerated. We owe a lot of that to, um, our military. I'm not going to go into a big history. I'm sure you've probably done it as far as like where the Paralympics originate from, why we even have the
For sure, yeah,
Paralympics.
yeah,
And our military it was, really, you know, unfortunately, a reason why the Paralympics really did take off and sustain such an
hmm
impact because, with the OSOC, with the US Paralympics, being able to have that type of, service available that was already established and get them back into it. And you see like Melissa Stockholm's, I mean, come on, like they make me just go like, what? They're just amazing. But there's things with the Paralympics that have also, they haven't digressed, they just haven't been progressive. We deal with, classifications that are just too mixed for one gold medal.
Mhm.
I mean, like in 2000, and it would still happen today. In 2000, I did the high jump, and by the rules, I won the high jump, and I was jumping against a guy who was missing he was missing his like half his hand or his wrist.
Yeah, yeah.
We jumped the same height. I had less misses, but we dropped it down. I was so frustrated. I ended up losing the event, and so I've always been frustrated with that. It's kind of hard to really justify, to the audience, like, why are you seeing a guy with no legs running a guy with one
That's
leg,
right. Yeah, yeah.
and so there's always that confusion. I think that's something we still could do better on and work on better. But I do understand the complications around that. With that being said, as far as financial support, training facilities, the level of eliteness that you know, dare I say, able-bodied athletes look at Paralympic athletes, the way that the crowd responds to Paralympic athletes is unbelievable. In 2002, I had the opportunity to be in Salt Lake City and basically get the golden ticket. And I was at every event, and I could not stop watching sled hockey. Like, vote for sled hockey Hall of Fame. Okay, 4 more days. Because you don't have to tell a story. The story is already there. And on the other, with the other sport, they're doing their own thing. I mean, they're Ali's, the Bob Beamans, guys jumping almost 30 feet. Soft paddle 6'7", dropping crazy times. There's so much, but there's also, sometimes there's they have to tell some stories. Okay, I got some asthma. Okay, well, I got asthma and I got no foot. There's zero excuses. But with the Paralympic Games, it's just been solely around the athletes providing, a better way of looking at themselves and how they're going to train, what levels they're going to take themselves to, and look athletic, be athletic, and train just like any other person would train.
Yeah.
That's what I did from day one, and that's seeing these guys now. I mean, unless you were looking closely or they were wearing shorts or were in a wheelchair, which is obvious, you probably wouldn't even know.
Yeah.
Mm-mm,
It's amazing, having been thrust into this world. So
mm-hmm,
I've shifted. My mentor, Judy Human, we call her the mother of the independent living movement. So I'm on the American Association's People of Disabilities Board of Directors, and it's just been a fascinating journey. So even in building the Paralympic military sport program, and having been the one, to get Melissa Stockwell out, and and some of the others, a lot of them,
mm-hmm.
off to war, and the group that did that, Baghdad to Beijing movie. Actually, Craig's brother just got, Brent he was the first correspondent to be killed over
Yeah.
in, and I just was I just heard about that from Craig. But when you look at this, and yes, going back to Sir Ludwig Gutmann in 1948, and begins this wheelchair sports, and it kind of turns into Paralympics, and then to kind of have this revamp on the summer side. Um, I think I was the first military injured veterans, in the 2000s to be a Paralympic athlete, and then you have this whole program that I built out. When you look at that, and you said so eloquently about that, talk about the way that how you juxtapose even technology now. Like we're going into like techno doping, right? Because the technology is so good
Mm-hmm.
that people can jump, like, off their prosthetic limbs, and
Yeah.
we have some
Yes, they
very
do.
specific thoughts around that.
Yes, they do. Well, they've mastered it. Let's give them that credit, because
Absolutely.
jumping 8 meters, woo. Um,
Yeah.
well,
I mean,
okay. So let's put it this way. If I might digress just a bit,
yeah, yeah.
when it comes to any type of medical device or medical science, whether it be a drug, like anything like a steroid or anything like that, these on the medicine side, it's those things are made for unhealthy people, but
Hmm.
when you have a healthy person taking taking testosterone and stuff like that are meant to help with people with deficiencies as children, adolescents growing up, well, then now you have superhumans. And when you get, to that level, well, there's a system in place, which is USADA and WADA, to make sure that we keep the sport clean. With prosthetics, it's the same thing. Like the prosthetic industry did not start off making Marlon Shirley, cheetahs and spring light feet because they wanted to like make the fastest amputee. They were making prosthetic feet. Now, how do you really, if you really want to give my analogy, is you look at Formula One or NASCAR in
Hmm.
America, okay?
Hmm. Hmm.
And you look at all of the safety features that have come from Michael Schumacher and like the technology he was able to do in the helmet. When Dale Earnhardt's father died, the way that they redesigned the brace, so like it's going to take athletes like myself and yourself to take the prosthetics to the extreme, and then of those shapes and tolerances that they can do, bring them down and then put them into the normal line of prosthetics, which then in
Hmm.
turn
Hmm.
gives us a better product, to where when we have somebody who is facing a decision of living with a fused ankle, or having their leg amputated, or dealing with constant nerve pain, or having their foot amputated, or dealing with all these things that are lowering their quality of life. What the industry has provided is devices that, are way further ahead they were when I was around the day, these satch feet that were rubber with wood in them, that the foot doesn't become better than the anatomical foot, but it does
Hmm.
become better than the foot that they have that is diseased. Um,
It's interesting you say that because
mhm,
in studying the long jump, right? I was a long jumper and I was
mhm.
8 meter long jumper, over 8 meter long jumper when I was at
Wow.
Arkansas. And so there is the penultimate step.
Right.
And the penultimate step lowers the center of gravity, right? To lower the hips. And then you take a short step and it pops you into the
Mhm.
air. So it converts the energy into the jump. I get geeked out about this stuff. And when I
Me
was
too.
studying the individuals on well, let me go back a little bit. So the ankle, if you get when you blow out your Achilles, you can get a stretch on that Achilles
Mhm.
and it'll pop it. Well, it also pushes you off into the stratosphere, right? So that's where people are
And retirement.
converting and retirement. Yeah, I'm so sorry.
I'm
Uh,
kidding.
the the interesting thing is the prosthetic foot now
Mhm,
can actually react faster
mhm,
than the strength than the ankle or the Achilles
mhm,
on that stretch. So you actually do get a faster reaction back. And if you can master that, putting it in the right position with the
mhm,
penultimate step, you will just springboard, you will sail. It's like a pole vaulter going up, right? You get
mhm.
the pole, and then you use the energy of the pole to shoot you up over the bar. So that's why I'm always for, if you have it, jump off your anatomical foot, right? The foot that
Mhm.
you do have, or the thing, because otherwise, I believe it's just who makes the best prosthetic. And if you
Well,
can
yeah,
put yourself in the
that's what happened. Yeah, that's what
that's
happened
what
in 2000 going into London. I mean,
right.
those guys' times, they just dropped so tremendously, but,
They just absolutely.
you
And
know
now that we see the technology being woven into shoes,
mhm,
that we're seeing times drop on the temporarily able-bodied side of the house. So we have these amazing athletes, and they're having these great shoes that have energy return coming back to them, and they're actually putting down incredible times on the track. So we see
yeah,
technology from the prosthetic
of
world
course.
entering into being woven into the field, and I think that's the fascinating thing. And so where do we go with it, right? There's always
Mhm.
been an evolution in the technology and
Well, with
advance of
swimming,
that.
they had the same controversy with swimming and the Speedo suits that the
And the
Americans were
speedo
winning.
suits, right? And then the
Mhm.
suits for the speed skating around the ice, right?
Yep.
So they had the aerodynamic suits on that as well.
Yeah.
So there's always advances in technology. In the last few moments of our show, please
Mhm.
tell everybody again about the Hall of Fame and what this means to you, but also how they can vote for you.
Oh, yes. So every 2 years, 3 years, they have the Olympic and Paralympic Hall of Fame inductions. It's a very rare Hall of Fame to get into, as there's only, I believe, 115 athletes that are even in the U.S. Olympic Hall of Fame, which is in Colorado Springs, Colorado. These are athletes like Beeman and Apollo, Ono, Muhammad Ali, just to name a few. Um, it's it's something that's very important to the athletes, but in the first series of it, what happens is everyone needs to vote for their athlete. You don't have to vote for every single athlete that's on there, but of those votes, they're going to take the votes from the community, and then use that to get to the final inductee selection, which will be then with NGBs, past Olympians, Hall of Famers, and then they'll name, I believe, one person in the Paralympics as a Hall of Fame. And so, in order to do that, I'm sure we'll put a link in here, but it would be on Team USA Hall of Fame. I believe it is. Can't remember the exact link, but we'll get that link in there. But yes, there's at Team USA. If you're on, yeah, so it's at Team USA. You can get it through Instagram. Facebook has been just like post after post. Of course, I prefer you vote for me. And the other athletes, I wish them all the best. But I woke up this morning and got on the show, so I think I got a little bit at. And as far as like the Hall of Fame, I mean, I've seen comments on there being like, "Oh, I want to just put them all in there. You win a gold medal, they should be in the Hall of Fame." No, that'd be like saying, everybody that wins the Super Bowl, they all should be in the Hall of Fame. Like, it is not supposed to be an easy thing to get into. And, I would just like to get in there before I die. I don't want to be one of them. But, this supports Team USA bigly. People think that Team USA gets all this, we get all this money from our government to compete like other countries do, and we don't. We have an amazing staff of people, an amazing group of volunteers and interns. We have, especially Colorado. I mean, land that was donated where I used to train at was an old Army barracks, and
Air Force.
Air Force, yes, sir. Yep, and so like we need the support. Even just getting on and voting and just showing that the care that we have for our Olympians, because it is a tough time for all current Olympians. I do not know how I would have went through the Olympics, with this new way of life and COVID. My training was every 4 years. I had my plan. I stuck to my plan. No matter how good I was feeling, I just waited till my 4-year plan, because that's when the Olympics are. And
stick to the plan.
Stick to the plan. Yeah, because you only have a 10-second race, 10 seconds over 4 years to run your perfect race. And,
that's right.
Number 2 is not a winner. And number 3, no one remembers. I think I got that from Nelly, but okay.
Well, I have shifted my thoughts on that. I used to think that until I won the silver medal, and I do say win and earned the silver medal, because I trained 20 years, and no one trains for second place. But then you have to you just make the results, whatever the results are, and have to be honorable.
And look at your results. I mean, you've always been like one of the most respected people. I mean, if not the most respected person I've ever looked at in track and field. I brag about you like you're my brother, and like I talk to you every day. Like, you make the Paralympics to me proud, and you've always held yourself at a standard that has just been so warm and comforting. And without saying it, you hold people to a level of quality that, mostly they probably wouldn't look at themselves. You don't let people mess up, and they don't want to mess up around you. Yes, I was young when I met you, and you're young too, but like, to learn like about how your accident happened and all that, you would not have thought you skipped a beat. And that's something that has always been instilled inside of me, and definitely has made an impact on my life. And I've appreciated knowing you. I appreciate knowing you, and I appreciate that you're able to go out there and inspire people, and that people are willing to understand how special it is, a message that you have.
Well, I appreciate that, and I'm older now. See my little scruff there, so
Yeah, I just shaved mine off.
But yes, likewise, and so been loving following your career. So glad you made time to be on the show today. Any parting words for for those that any mantras that you have for the young folks who might be watching, or for older individuals, seasoned individuals who have children at home and kind of want to have a message for those folks?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. Parents that have children with disabilities, it is an opportunity. Hopefully that you're able to go and find the resources and videos, people like April Holmes, and just all kinds of great Paralympic athletes, and understand that that they have a unique ability to do great things.
Mhm.
um, like I have to, constantly go back and remind myself of, what defines me. And that's always been the
Mm.
hardest thing for me to do, is like, what would be that moment that defines me? But I find a lot of my self-worth in what how many people I've been able to reach out to,
Yeah,
and change their mindset by not even saying a word, running down the track in 10 seconds, not even saying a word, and changing the mindset of what people thought a disability was. And I encourage, anyone around, anyone else that sees that maybe somebody may be a little bit different, or just maybe having a tough day, that it's a great time to go in and make a huge impact on their life by just saying hi, connecting, asking how they're doing, and getting them involved and keeping them engaged. Because no matter how great an athlete you are, or how many accolades you have, or presidents you've met, and all this great stuff, everybody, needs someone to, to be a teammate, no
yeah.
matter if it's sport or not. It's got me through a lot of things, and continually will get me through more things in the future.
Absolutely. And then how do people find you? Are you at marlinshirley.com? Is that one of the
No, actually, just find me on Instagram at
Instagram? Okay.
IB Trackin, so IBTRACKIN.
Be tracking on the IG.
And
I'm
then,
just putting that
yeah,
in for everybody to find it right there.
and the
And I'm
same
going to put it
for
on the banner
Facebook.
real quick. I be at I be tracking. I got to do. I'm doing everything. I don't have. I'm the show guy. I'm the producer. I can do everything. I got
That's
to do
what
everything here. I got to do
YouTubers
everything.
do.
On the gram. On the gram. Okay. Just gonna put that scroll across the bottom real quick. Thank you so much,
Yep. And Facebook is
Marlon,
my
for
name, Marlon, Marlon Shirley.
Marlon Shirley. Okay.
IBTRACKIN. Yep.
All right. I be tracking on the gram. So follow
Yep.
Marlon on that. Make sure
All my
you're
links
voting
will be
for him.
there to be able to get these athletes voted in. And I'm on social media every day now, doing these little crazy stories, to promote the Hall of Fame. So,
Awesome.
anyways, I appreciate all of you, and this has been awesome.
Thank you. Thanks for being on. I really appreciate it. Stay on for a second. I'll just be ready to kind of end our show for our guests that are out there right now. And ladies and gentlemen, we've been on with the one and only Marlon Shirley. Wow, what a great interview, right? I loved how he was talking about, when you watch your dreams kind of run away from you, but then you kind of get it back, right? You're on the pathway, and who's around you, who's supporting you to lift you across your finish lines in life. And I think that was really powerful message. So vote for Marlon if you so choose, or some of the other athletes that are out there in the Hall of Fame at teamusa.org. I believe is the website to go. If you get there, at least you can figure out your way to vote for the athlete that you so choose. I so choose to say Marlon Shirley on there. So that's been our show for the day. Thanks for tuning in, and thanks for all your questions, and for sharing your episodes with this audience, this episode with your audiences. And once again, please subscribe and follow the show if you are in love with the content. Up and coming. So I got a lot of stuff happening. We just finished, I said on the show, Infinity yesterday. We are doing Accelerants today. We have Activision next week, and we have a lot of other stuff that's in the can. I did jump into the professional inspirational speaker coach. Why? Because the Ellen DeGeneres show reached out right after I said I was going to do it, and have me train one of their guests on their show, on her show, on the Daily Smile, and we are going to be working with a company called Tisbest. Woo, that's a little spoiler alert coming up, which is going to be fantastic. We're really excited about all the things that are going on with Inspired Communications International. We're building out a whole team of people that are doing inspirational speaker stories. So thank you once again for tuning in. And of our mantra is always to go forth and inspire your world. Why? Because go is your command, forth is your direction, inspire is your vocation, world, because this is your sphere of influence and only you can do it, right? So therefore, you go forth and inspire your world. We'll see you back here at another Thursday at 7 o'clock in the morning, Mountain Time. My name is John Register, two-time two-sport Paralympic athlete, saying bye for now.